because she had a previously arranged medical procedure. This evening, we respectfully ask Council to proclaim October 1st as Squamish Seniors Day in recognition of International Day of the Elderly, which is observed by the United Nations, and in recognition of National Seniors Day in Canada, and to formally honor the seniors whose contributions have enriched and strengthened our community. Such a proclamation would be a fitting tribute to the older adults of Squamish, whose service, wisdom, and dedication continue to shape the life of our community in profound and lasting ways. Through volunteerism, leadership, mentorship, caregiving, and active involvement in civic and community life, seniors contribute immeasurably to the strength, character, and the well-being of Squamish. Recognizing October 1st in this way would not only acknowledge those many contributions, but also affirm the values of respect, dignity, gratitude, and inclusion that help define a strong and compassionate community. A proclamation by Council would stand as a meaningful public expression of appreciation and as a reminder that seniors remain an essential and valued part of the identity, continuity, and future of Squamish. Thank you for your time and your thoughtful consideration. We sincerely hope Council will support this request, not only this year, but annually, and join us in formally recognizing, with gratitude and respect, the lasting contributions that seniors make to the spirit, strength, and the future of Squamish. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Council, any questions for our guest, or anyone would like to move the proclamation if we're ready for that? Councillor Stoner?
Yeah, thank you through the mayor. Thanks so much for being here and requesting again the proclamation. I believe last year you folks had a bit of activities and celebrations around Seniors Day. I just wondering if it's something that your organization is planning again this year.
Well, we will be planning for that, but the reason that we're doing this so far in advance this year is because we were too late to do what we really wanted to do last year, apparently. I am very new to Squamish. I've only been here since October, so I wasn't actually here for all of that, but I heard that we have to do it this year in time.
Thank you for addressing one of my questions in your reply. So, seeing no other hands, I'm happy to move that October 1st, 2026 be proclaimed Squamish Seniors Day in the District of Squamish, seconded by Councillor French. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming to see us this evening. And I think it's actually quite perfect that you're relatively new to Squamish, as often when folks think of seniors in the community, it's long-term residents is sort of the category, but it's actually our fastest growing demographic is seniors. I would say that's a byproduct of years of Squamish being one of, if not the youngest communities in Canada, and now we see parents and grandparents following their kids and grandkids out to Squamish. So I think and I think that's quite lovely. So I'm happy to support this initiative, and I look forward to seeing what festivities look like by the time we get to October. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Council, any additional comments? Councillor French, then Peggy.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Herford, and thank you very much for coming today and formally making the request and in supporting Seniors Day on October the 1st. I just want to make sure you and your organization are clear that we need for you to come back every year and ask for this declaration. We don't do them in perpetuity, which is great because it means the organization gets an opportunity to outline what's planned for October the 1st if you're coming at a point where you have some plans in place. And I'm very much looking forward to when we learn more about what's going to be on tap for October 1st to mark the day.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Councillor Pettingill.
Yes, thanks for coming. As someone who is getting ever closer to 55 plus cutoff. I think I'm less than 3 years away now. Yeah, it's something I need to be very mindful of just from selfish reasons. But there is a lot of, as the mayor said, seniors are our fastest growing demographic. It is something that with our all ages and abilities plan, we've tried to think about. It is something we've thought about with Garibaldi Estates and some of the work there. With the provincial repacing, and that's a very charitable way of acknowledging it. And maybe I shouldn't be adopting the province's language, but with the repacing of our long-term care, how quickly West Winds became occupied, and as we go into looking at a perpetually affordable housing policy, thinking about the experience and the needs of seniors in our communities is really important. So having you come and remind us of that and make sure these really critical issues stay top of mind is important. So thank you for helping to do that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously, as it should. Thank you so much. So our next item, yes, this is you. Would you like to present from there? Do you want to speak from here? Or okay. We'll turn over to CAO Glendale.
Thank you. Through the mayor, good evening, council and members of the community. For those that don't know me, I'm Linda Glendale. I'm the CAO here at the District of Squamish. And last year I had the opportunity and the privilege, I was chosen to represent the Local Government Management Association in the Overseas Manager Exchange Program. So I traveled to New Zealand, where I worked with and met and was partnered with Jenny Cochran, who is sitting beside me, and learned a ton. I did forward my report to council. You saw that quite a while ago, actually. And Jenny was an incredible host, as was her municipality. Although I learned in New Zealand, they call them councils, which was very confusing. But today is just an informal, Jenny's coming to watch some of our council meeting, and I will let Jenny introduce herself. And then if you have any questions for Jenny or for me about the program, we're happy to speak to you tonight. Say a little bit.
Tēnā koe, or hello from New Zealand. So as Linda said, my name is Jenny Cochran. I am the GM of Customer Experience at Matamatapihako District Council, which is in the Waikato in the North Island. We were very privileged to host Linda last year and connect over some of the commonalities in local government worldwide. And already very much enjoying the opportunity to be hosted and welcomed by the municipality staff here. Have been shown around your amazing fire hall and seen your new public works facility. I took a lot of photos of that, as I'm sure our team are going to be very jealous. And seeing some of the really progressive work that's happening here in Squamish. So would welcome any questions if there's anything you would like to know from me.
Thank you so much, and it's great to have you. It always strikes me how we each feel that we're own unique snowflakes in local government, and as once you get past that, we're all working on similar issues. So I love the being able to exchange the idea exchange and so on, which just doesn't happen in the private sector for obvious reasons. So that's great to have you. Council, do we have any questions at this point for our guests? And I see a question forming. I can feel it forming from Councillor French. I give him some more time though. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Thank you for presenting and being here this evening and for the work that's going on in information sharing. My question is, what are the current kind of top issues that you're facing in your council in New Zealand and the community that you serve?
Such a good question. So there's a lot of similarities in terms of things like housing and cost of living. But at the moment, some of our most topical challenges are actually around the reform of local government that's underway. So our biggest work program that we're currently working through is separating our water services into what's called a council-owned organisation. So 6 municipalities are forming a separate organisation, and we're in the process of extracting our water, drinking water and wastewater services into a whole new entity and uncoupling that from the council operations and standing up a whole new entity around it within a short time frame. Bringing together 6 organisations is hugely complex, but in terms of infrastructure investment and things like career pathways, it is shaping up to be a really positive shift for New Zealand in terms of the possibilities in the long term, and infrastructure investment.
Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. And I don't know, maybe this is a whole committee the whole day question, but my understanding is that New Zealand has been sort of a bit of a leader in terms of reconciliation and relationships with Indigenous peoples, and maybe more recently things have been a bit more challenging. But I'm just wondering if you could speak to top of the waves. Is there any sort of observations or differences you've noticed, or thoughts you'd like to share, or because it is something that we are sort of really thinking about now as well?
Yeah, that was certainly an area that we focused on during Linda's time in New Zealand, and hearing about the MOU that you've implemented here too has been a really insightful, sort of powerful example of what's happening here. It's really difficult to compare because the systems are quite different, but we have focused on meaningful partnership in working with iwi organisations. So our iwi organisations are different in that they are not a government like the Squamish Nation and your First Nations here, but they have a lot of similarities in terms of ability to influence things like development, and also ability to help shape community in a really meaningful way. Yeah, I don't know. Linda, would you have any observations from your time?
I do. I always like examples, and one of the most powerful examples I saw of that partnership that would be wonderful to bring to Squamish someday. It's aspirational, but in Taupo is one of the towns we went to visit. The iwi, or the Maori, partnered with a developer. Was it their land? Was it Maori land, or?
It was private land.
It was private land, and the Maori partnered with a developer and built a civic building within which now is housed the local municipal staff, the local council, as well as the Maori
iwi organization.
iwi organization, basically, and there were a number of them. And not only is it a gorgeous building and quite functional because it's brand new, but what they said that it was the best outcome was the connection between the iwi organizations, the municipal staff, the municipal council, and just the opportunity for that informal connection was really impactful to see. And then not to mention just to leverage the private partnership and upgrade, like the municipal council, their building became seismically unsafe, and so they had to move. So all these things came together. I know it sounds familiar, right? And just the ability to create a capital, like, so the iwi, I believe, with the partnership owned the building and the municipality leased the space. So a really interesting partnership and a great example that, maybe someday we could leverage here.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other hands for questions, so maybe I'll move receipt, I suppose, and we can continue on with our evening if there's a seconder. Second by Councillor Stoner. Just thank you, well, to both of you for this work. We have like I said in my remarks earlier, we have so much to learn from each other, and I love that both halves of this equation have like, look at this cool thing that we did, and as well as like, can you help us, or how have you addressed this? And oh, we've done this other thing over here, and I think there's tremendous value in this, both from just an understanding, but also if we look right down to the finances of it, and what can we learn from those that have gone before, wherever they are, as we tackle these big issues we have in our community. So thank you so much for both of you for your work on this and your generosity and curiosity. Thank you. Any other, Councillor French, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Herford. I too am a big believer in exchanges like this, and in that, I'm a big believer of stealing good ideas, and I'm pretty sure that our CAO brought a few of your good ideas across the water. Feel free to steal anything and everything that might be useful for you in New Zealand.
Thank you. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your time in Squamish, and bold choice to be in council chambers on such a beautiful day in in Squamish. So thank you. So next up, we have unscheduled public attendance. If anyone in attendance has a matter that's emergent in nature and needs to be dealt with, they feel needs to be dealt with prior to our next regular scheduled council meeting, this will be your opportunity to identify yourself. Seeing none, we'll move on. We're on item 5.1, notice on title section 57 for 38921 Progress Way, specifically units 2 and 3. And I will turn it over to staff to introduce themselves and run us through the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Andrea Stokes, License and Property Use Inspector with the District of Squamish. Here with me today is Chad Williams, Senior Building Official, to provide technical expertise and as a building code resource. We are supporting each other with the recommendation for registration of notice on title under Section 57 of the Community Charter for the property commonly known as 38921 Progress Way, Unit 2 and 3 in the Industrial Park, with a business license listed as Sea to Sky Linens Limited. The legal descriptions can be found in the report. The summary of this file is that Squamish Fire Rescue responded to an emergency call for a dryer fire in mid-December 2025. Upon entry and inspection, SFR identified significant safety issues, which included unpermitted construction, lack of fire protection, non-compliant work, and unpermitted residential occupancy. Building Services site inspection on December 31st, 2025 led to immediately issuing a not to be occupied notice for the residential occupancy in the mezzanine space, listed short-term compliance requirements within 21 days to complete, and a condition to apply for a building permit to address the substantial non-compliance by February 1, 2026. That letter is attached to the report. On March 25th, 2026, Building Services conducted their second scheduled site inspection, and based on those findings, issued a do not occupy for both units 2 and 3 and revoked Sea to Sky Linens business license. Further site visits on April 14th and April 21st resulted in 2 bylaw offense notices, also known as tickets, and the urgent recommendation for building code analysis, where a code consultant can provide a prescriptive list of issues that need to be addressed through the building permit process. To date, Building Services has received very little communication from the property owner, nor have we received a complete building permit application to resolve non-compliance issues. We have not observed effort to clear the fire access route to clear the fire access route at the rear of the property, and the business continues to operate. We were told yesterday that a code consultant was scheduled to conduct a site inspection, but we don't have the results of that visit quite yet. At this time, the recommendations to council are to instruct the corporate officer, place a bylaw and building code contravention notice on land title section 57 of the community charter to advise interested parties that there are outstanding issues, and to instruct the corporate officer in their discretion to seek injunctive relief if a complete building permit application is not received by September 1, 2026. Although Mr. Breyer, the property owner, has very recently engaged with the code consultant yesterday, we'd prefer assurance that the issues are wholly resolved. We are happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much. And council, just for this, I know this isn't a process that we deal with regularly. At this point, council will have opportunity to ask clarifying questions and have a discussion. And then there's opportunity if the owner or representative would like to speak following that before we reach before we contemplate the recommendation. So I'll start with you, Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I'm just looking for clarification because I think I heard something tonight that I don't recall seeing in the report to council. Is it correct that the laundry operation business license was revoked and the laundry operation continues to operate without a District of Squamish business license? Is that the situation?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, just two questions of clarification. The first is whether there appears to be still folks living on site or if it's just the operation of the business at this time.
Through the chair, just the operation of the business at this time.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then secondly, you can just remind me the process of how a Section 57 gets removed from title.
Through the chair, through the issuance of a Section 58. If perhaps our corporate officer can speak to that directly.
Once the conditions are met, so once building services is able to sign off that the code analysis has been completed and that it's been approved and that the business license has been reissued, they'll advise me and then I'll ask Land Title to remove the Section 57 from title.
And the removal process doesn't involve council from what you just described. This is an administrative. Once this is the step that involves council, removal is administrative or escalation, I suppose, with the motion.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hamilton, then Pettingill.
Yeah, thanks very much. This is one unit within a building of several units. And the fire separation, the holes in the fire separation that we see here, are those isolated to this unit, or do they put us? Are there holes in the fire separation between units?
Through the chair. Yes, that is one of the biggest concerns that we identified when we did the original site visit. There is significant opportunity for fire to move between units. And you're right, there's multiple units within the building, and there is one permitted dwelling unit on an upper floor in the building and potentially another unpermitted dwelling unit, which is a concern of ours. But yeah, that is a concern.
Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, just a clarifying question. So multiple different, I guess, owners, or is this is this against the building? We're several tenants. Is this sort of two units owned by one individual, and it's not a strata sort of thing? It's just, I don't know what the term is, but can you just explain the ownership structure?
Through the chair, the property and the business owner are the same, which is not always the case. Both the property owner and the business owner operate from units 2 and 3.
Okay, and this is not a strata, so it's so there's no common areas in terms of roofs and so on.
Through the chair, it's considered industrial zoning, so it's not stratified. It's in the industrial zone.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing in our letter to the owner, I gather, it talks about concerns about moisture and so on. And can you just speak to, I guess, I understand us regulating some fire and different things. The moisture piece is a bit of a new one to us. Is that more just sort of observation we added, or do we have some regulatory sort of requirements in that respect?
Through the chair. The building code does regulate climate, if you will. If you think about Brennan Park, for example, you've got some areas that are very high humidity and have to be treated differently than an area that's much drier, like a gymnasium or something along those lines, and they have to be separated so not to create conditions for things like mold and deterioration of wood and organic materials, that sort of stuff. So it is regulated through the building code. And it was identified on site as it wasn't properly managed.
Okay, council, any additional questions? Just before we move on to the next step here, the do not occupy and the business operating without a business license, which is where we are now, enforcement of those don't come to council necessarily, but is there enforcement underway on that, or is, as presented here, this is like a 6-month before there's some escalation, or just what's happening in that space, if you can share, and if that's unknown, that's could be a fair response as well.
Through the chair, when I spoke on March 25th, 2026, we issued the do not occupy, and at that point, we issued 2 bylaw offense notices. One was 4.1 under the building code for construction without a permit, and the other one was under business license bylaw for operating without a business license.
Okay, I have some curiosity there, but I'll leave it there. I don't think it's relevant to the decision ahead of us here this evening. So if there's no further questions from council at this time, I'll ask if the owner or representative is here and would like to speak to this matter. And if there is, then we'll have you approach the podium. Yeah, we'll get just give us a sec. We'll get the microphone going and make sure we have the camera. And do you mind just taking down the presentation from the screen? And then the floor is yours, sir. You have 3 minutes to address council.
Yes, sir. My name is Jasvinder Brar, and I'm the owner for both the strata units, and I am the owner of the business at the same time. And I have been running that laundry since 2011. And before that, the laundry has been there from day one that building was built. And that's how I bought it. And all those units and whatever they're mentioning, they were all done up at that time when the building was built. And I have no idea if they are legit, not legit, or whatever. I'm inheriting all that from whatever was there. And that's all I can say from that part of it. As far as Mr. William has mentioned, and he's certainly helping me to fix all the problems, and he knows that I'm working on it, and we will do whatever needs to be from the building code inspector. They asked for the drawings, in which I went in. I got the email this morning, and I went in today and I paid for those so I can get them and he can work on it. And that's where I am. It's not that I'm trying to avoid it. It's just that I have inherited it, and I just like to. And don't forget that I know they're saying that don't do the laundry. Of course, it's easy to say. I have contracts with the hotels, and it's almost like $1.5 million business. And you can't shut it down because the hotels, we have signed the contract that we will give them laundry 365 days a week. So I'm working every single day.
Thank you very much for that context. I'm sure as a group on this side of the table and that we'll figure out a path through this. So thank you very much for your submission.
Okay.
And so now we'll move back to council. Yep, you can have it. You can have a seat. Thank you. I know these structures are not things we normally participate in from day to day. So, so council, do we need any further clarifying questions for staff, or we do have the matter of the recommendations before us as they appear in your agenda as well? I feel like we're ready for motions. Councillor French, go ahead.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, I would like to speak to it. This is a fairly simple matter for me. I support life safety. I support the fire code. I support the BC building code and the good work of our firefighters and the diligent work of our building department and the other District of Squamish employees who support those two functions within the district. So it's as simple as that for me. This is a life safety issue that needs to be dealt with. And I think that this is the course of action that needs to be taken on this file.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. Support the motion on the floor. Thank staff for doing their work. And I thank the property owner for working forward to rectifying the problems. We absolutely sometimes you can purchase a property that's not up to code, and sometimes it becomes our responsibility to bring it up to code. So thanks very much for working with staff and working together to bring this back to a safe working and living for some environment. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I will be supporting the motion on the floor. The Section 57 is one tool that we have to ensure that we can get to somewhere that is safe for property owners, for our community, and for the businesses that are providing vital services to our tourism industry. Thank you for the work that you do. It's really important that that's done in a safe manner. And so this is one tool that we have to ensure that that work gets done. And I'm grateful to hear that that process is moving forward. And there's an ability to take that Section 57 off once the code compliances come up to speed. I'm sure it's probably a very busy time for you as we go into summer, and it's an exceptionally busy time on your end. So hopefully you have the support that you need to work through the building code issues, and we can continue to provide a safe environment for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Yeah, I'll be speaking in support of the motion, largely for the same reasons we've heard here. This is a life safety issue that originated with a call for service to Squamish Fire Rescue. So it's not merely a hypothetical or administrative concern. This is something that's very real and tangible. I don't have visibility, nor has it been part of the discussion here as to when these issues came to be, this unpermitted work. We're not here to litigate that, but this step is actually quite important to ensure that the next person doesn't, if a solution here is this is too much and we need to sell it and let the next person deal with it, this makes it very clear as to what is there and what issues need to be resolved if that's a step. So I think it's a very responsible step as a council to ensure that this happens. And I have, having been through similar situations over my time in this room, I know that within limits, staff is very reasonable with finding ways with property owners to work towards compliance, and that also means providing a safe place for folks to work and a safe and to be a good, safe neighbor for others in the buildings as well. So happy to see us move forward, and I hope that this title or this notice on title stays for a extremely short period of time, and this matter can be resolved. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Council, next we have the consent agenda, and just a note that the May 12th minutes have been updated in the package. So, but there was a correction. There was I believe it was a mislabeling of, where was it? The LNG. LNG. It's been updated. The original minutes said Fortis, but it was actually LNG was what was said in the meeting. So those minutes have been adjusted. So we can pull those, have a deeper discussion on it, but would anyone like to, before we go into moving the consent agenda, would anyone like to pull anything in the consent agenda? Go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
I'd like to pull item, I don't know, I guess 2-4, my own letter.
Thank you for making that easy for me to keep track of as we go through this meeting. Councillor French.
Yeah, I'd like to pull item 2, 3 eyes. R. Crum re-flag at grad.
Okay. I'll pull 2-2, the companion to that one. Just I know we're running out of things in the consent agenda. Is there anyone would anyone like to pull anything else? I don't see any other hands, so I'd be looking for someone to moving the remainder of the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor French. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. So we'll deal with those items, 3 items, at the appropriate spot later in our agenda. So next we have Committee of the Whole and Advisory Body recommendations. Now these were coming from Committee of the Whole, so this is us making recommendations to ourselves. Oh, sorry, that was in the consent agenda. Sorry. It's been a long day. Correction, we're on item 7, which is 7.1, District of Squamish Zoning Bylaw 2200-2011 Amendment Bylaw for 37870 Cleveland Avenue. These are hotel and height amendments. And I will turn it over to staff when they're ready to run us through the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Aisha Philp, planner with the Community Development Department. Tonight, I am presenting a rezoning application for 37870 Cleveland Avenue for consideration of first 3 readings. The primary request of the application is to allow tourist accommodation as a permitted use, which would then allow for replacement of the office portion of the project with a hotel. This image here shows a bird's eye view of the overall project. Sorry, I forgot to introduce Jonas Valanishkis, GM of Community Safety and Development.
Yes.
Great. So the subject property was rezoned to a comprehensive development zone, CD 37, in 2018 to allow for a mixed-use development with commercial space at grade and residential units above, and an office space portion located at the northernmost end of the block fronting Main Street. The property is shown here highlighted in blue. As part of the original 2018 rezoning, the applicant committed to providing a minimum of 25% of the total gross floor area of the development as employment space. And of this employment space, 10% was planned as office space and 15% as commercial retail units at grade. A development permit for the site was issued in 2021. It included housing agreements to secure the affordable and market rental units. Related to this rezoning application, staff presented an office space snapshot in 2025 and hosted a discussion with Committee of the Whole on the potential conversion of unbuilt office space in previously approved projects, including this one. At this meeting, the committee directed staff to explore alternative employment space options, including tourist accommodation. The rezoning application proposes to add tourist accommodation as a permitted use to the CD 37 zone. The amendment would allow the office use to be replaced with hotel use. The CD 37 zone permits additional stories to be added to the north building, and the developer plans to add 1 additional story to the hotel to increase the financial viability of the overall project. And this would facilitate a 66-unit hotel. And this rendering shows the proposed 5-story hotel as seen from the intersection of Cleveland and Main Street. Staff are supportive of the conversion of the office to hotel because the space remains employment space. and it exceeds the employment space requirements both in the CD 37 zone and also our broader requirement in our downtown commercial zone, C4. The loss of this potential office space is equivalent to an 8.5% reduction of our office space supply that is currently in our development pipeline. The gain in tourist accommodation units will help meet existing demand. We have recent hotel occupancy rates in Squamish that exceed 80% throughout the year, as shown in this image, which is taken from the 2025 Tourism Squamish annual snapshot. The rezoning application also proposes to remove the tandem parking prohibition in the CD 37 zone. If removed, 18 tandem spaces would be allocated to the 2-bedroom units in the south building, and 11 tandem spaces would be allocated to the hotel in the north building. The parkade plan shown here highlights the location of the 18 tandem spaces in the south building. The developer has committed to providing hotel parking that exceeds the minimum off-street parking required in our zoning bylaw. And the hotel parking commitment would be secured in this amendment bylaw. The developer is proposing 0 parking spaces to be allotted to the affordable rental units, and this is aligned with our 2024 affordable housing zoning bylaw update that removed all of the off-street parking space requirements for affordable housing. The developer is offering to commit to a car share cooperative to provide car share memberships for the 30 affordable rental units. Lastly, the zoning application proposes a minor height increase for principal building B. This is the northernmost building, from 20.0 meters to 20.8 meters. This is to accommodate step code changes that occurred partway through the development process and required increased floor and roof assembly thicknesses, basically to increase energy efficiency. And these multiple additional assemblies are shown here, totaling in the 0.8 meters. The developer has increased their affordable rental housing commitment in this current rezoning to 15% of the total number of residential units. And the original 2018 rezoning secured 12% affordable housing in comparison. So this increase aligns with the district's recently adopted rezoning application alignment with official community plan policy. The developer is also committed to constructing at least one of the affordable rental units as an adaptable dwelling unit, with one designated accessible parking space allocated to this adaptable unit. Further, the developer has committed to registering a no gas covenant for the entire development, which would include the commercial retail units and the hotel. The rezoning application is aligned with our OCP policies in the downtown Squamish section, as well as our downtown commercial center land use designation. The proposed change from office to hotel improves the constructability of the project and the delivery of 30 affordable housing units, 10 market rental housing units, and the in-kind public amenities secured through the original rezoning, which consists of 2 public plazas, public art, and a sidewalk along the site's Loggers Lane frontage. And the design for our Main Street Plaza is as currently designed as shown here. To inform the community per policy, the rezoning application was posted to the district's development review map. The development sign was posted at the site. 5 public comments have been received, and no project information meeting has been held. And in accordance with provincial housing legislation, Section 464 of the Local Government Act, local governments are prohibited from holding public hearings related to rezoning applications for developments that are primarily residential in nature and consistent with the OCP, and this project meets these requirements. So based on the rationale outlined in the staff report, staff are recommending that zoning amendment bylaw number 3223 be given first, second, and third reading, and that council authorize amendments to the land development agreement to secure the items listed A through E here. And lastly, that prior to adoption of bylaw number 3223, that a flood hazard covenant be registered on title. That ends my presentation. I'll pass it back to the chair.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Council, who wants to start us off with questions? I will then, and we'll come to we'll come to you. Just as this is this is a pretty sizable project, takes up that whole block. Is it is there a risk that only a portion of this gets built, or is it all, it's really one thing? It's just quite sizable. Like, is this going to be phased in such a way? Like, are we going to? I'm trying to understand if the sort of the community benefit is going to be delivered when the first sort of piece is occupied, or is this something that happens in a complex phasing of some sort?
Through the chair, a mixed response. So the applicant has not said they are proceeding in a phased manner. They've submitted for both of their building permits, and they have the approved development permit in place. And in terms of the benefits that you would see on the ground, the Main Street Plaza would be secured through the servicing agreement with security included in that, a security bond. And that's my response.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That's useful context. Is it on this? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Stoner, then I'll come to you, Councillor Pennington.
Just on that timing with the rezoning, does the existing development permit and building permit still apply given the change in use and potential form?
Through the chair, again, it's a bit of a mixed answer. So the south building has not changed, so that building permit is okay. The north building has changed, and they would have to come in for a new building permit for the north building or an update to their existing application. And that's at the discretion of the chief building inspector to make that call.
Thank you. Councillor Pennington.
Yeah, so a few things. And I'm sort of open to the idea of that whole north side transitioning to hotel rather than office. But as I understand what's proposed, the whole thing, all of the commercial could technically go hotel. I don't think that's what we want. Doesn't seem like that's what's intended, but could that be an outcome of what's proposed? And would we be comfortable with that? Or, are we better to sort of say up to 50% of the commercial space hotel or something?
Through the chair, I won't make an opinion about whether I think it's better or not to do it, but the way that the zone has currently been drafted, it doesn't lock in a certain percentage of the office, or sorry, of the hotel compared to the commercial retail units.
Okay, maybe leave that with my colleagues, because to me, when we think about Cleveland and its function and so on, I think this is a place where actually some degree of retail is important, maybe, and so trying to wrap my head around that a little bit. I understand that the focus is on the north end. I think the south end, we have heights that we aren't approving now. My understanding, there's fire service constraints. And so, as we're sort of adjusting and so on, I'm wondering why we did or didn't sort of contemplate some adjustments to that, or is there something here where those sort of fire service capacity constraints aren't an issue, or how do we, is that not something we should be taking an opportunity to try and address here, or is there something unique about this?
Maybe could. Through the chair, is just to clarify your question, are you asking if we can secure the commercial retail units to a certain square footage or a certain percentage?
Yeah, that was maybe more a question of staff if there's any planning principle which says that's a good idea, and then a follow-up to my colleagues about where did the rest of us feel, because as I read this, all of the commercial space in theory with this proposed change could go to hotel, and I'm not sure if that's what we want, but
yes. Through the chair, maybe we'll take a timeout if we can't provide good clarification here and now, but there isn't anything in the zone that limits the hotel to the upper stories of the northernmost building. There isn't anything that provides that constraint. That being said, what the developer has showed us, what they've planned all along, is to have the entire ground floor, Cleveland and Main Street frontage be commercial retail units, except for a small portion that would be for the hotel lobby.
Okay.
And you had a question about or sorry, does that satisfy? Let's deal with this question. I know you have an unanswered question you just posed, but does that address your?
I appreciate that clarity, and I guess that the sort of that next piece is to the rest of my colleagues around the table about how we feel if we're comfortable with just what is proposed, or do we want to put it in the zoning, some sort of mix of commercial hotel. My next question though was about the fire service, because I think I see 8 stories on the south side, which my understanding is that sort of exceeds what we're comfortable contemplating in general now. So as we're sort of adjusting and so on, is there a reason why we're not trying to address that, or what is the impact of that at this point in time? Like, does this necessitate a significant fire service investment if this goes ahead as we see proposed here?
Through the chair, I'll take a crack at it and I'll pass it to Jonas afterwards if you need further clarification. So this project, the south building, is 8 stories, and this was secured in the zoning prior to us having these discussions with Squamish Fire Rescue and setting kind of an informal policy or a guideline around it. That is informal policy and a guideline that is best practice following National Fire Protection, the NFPA document. So it's a best practice. It's not a rule or a requirement.
So I guess what I'm trying to sort out though is there's been some sort of give and take in terms of what's asked for and offered here. Is there a reason why addressing that wasn't a target of this, given it seems out of step with our current best practice? Like, is that something that's fine with? They just put in sprinklers, it's their cost and it's no issue to us? Or does this sort of, if this proceeds now as a whole package, we then have to make a whole bunch of extra investment in our fire service because we have this thing that's outside of our current recommendation?
Through the chair, the residential component, the focus of this rezoning is on the employment space. And so we sort of narrowed down the negotiations mostly about the employment space portion of this building. And as Asia mentioned, the rezoning of the residential space was done before we had this policy around height restrictions. So our understanding is that this is, it's not going to impact our requirements for staffing in the fire department. It makes it, as we know now, it's just more challenging for fire to service the kind of higher height buildings, but it doesn't change our requirements or our obligations from a fire service perspective.
Okay, I'll leave that, chew on that for a bit. The last thing, just, and I appreciate the no gas covenant. The language we usually talk about is no gas permitted. In the report says no gas, I think supplied is the language, which I get uptight about this sort of thing, but to me, no supplied means that you could then later on and add your own. And when I think the intent is to make sure that it's not permitted, full stop kind of thing. And so just to clarify that that's actually what would be reflected in a covenant.
Through the chair, exactly. So we have a template pro forma covenant that we use across the board, and it would be falling under that template.
Thank you. Council, additional questions here? On the matter of we're treating the property as a whole, which is why we're not having which is where we're not allowed to have the public hearing. Is that correct? Because the piece that we're actually changing, I was trying to wrap my mind around this, because the piece we're actually changing is really about an employment space and a commercial change in commercial use. But because it's one parcel? Is that why?
Through the chair, correct. So we have kind of several of these sorts of applications that are current right now, and we're being consistent in how we look at them to make that determination on that section of the LGA regarding the public hearing. So this is 75% residential, this project.
Okay, thank you. Council, other questions? We do have the recommendations as they appear, if that's where we are, or an alternative to. Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. I'm just wondering if staff can speak a little bit to they perceive the functionality of the tandem parking spaces downtown and other places where we've potentially enabled these.
Through the chair, we haven't done any studies internally to study the existing functionality of the few places that do have tandem parking. So I can't speak to that. In discussion with the developer, they've proposed for the hotel tandem to operate a valet. And so that's kind of, to me, that's quite apparent that there will be that functionality, less so regarding the residential tandem parking. But the developer felt that it was like a critical component to the delivery of these 2-bedroom units to be able to offer 2 parking spaces in this tandem format.
Was that your hand, Councillor Pettingill? Yeah. Okay, I think we're good. Go ahead.
This may be not a question for this. We have touched on it before and we see it in the renderings. And sometimes we secure these kinds of things with the rezoning, although this isn't about density and so on. But this boulevard and the impacts and the future function of Junction Park, are we sort of expecting the developer to, because we're losing 2 aspects of vehicle access to the OCM pavilion with the renderings we see and I think the boulevard plans, but that can be pretty critical to a lot of the events that happen there. And so is there opportunity or in what we're talking about here to sort of address some of that piece and what redesign? I guess it would be on from these renderings have to be on the east side to address that. Or how does that fit into things? Or are we just sort of saying, actually, that's not going to be vehicular access to support events is just not going to be a thing there anymore, and we'll have to do it somewhere else?
Through the chair, in previous reviews of this project that staff have brought forwards, we've discussed the Main Street Plaza design with council and received direction from council around the closure of Main Street. Staff have proceeded on that direction, and the design allows for the street to be open or closed to vehicular traffic.
And sorry for clarity, and I thought we had discussed either more sort of for event support from access from the east or west side as opposed to Main Street, understanding that this boulevard was going to be here. But I'm just wondering if that's still part of this, like in the renderings, it looks like from the west side is no longer going to be a thing, but are we still planning to maintain that, or discussions like access from the east to the pavilion if someone needs to pull up a big truck for whatever to support an event right up to the pavilion? Is that sort of thing possible to still tackle or address? Or are we ruling that out?
I believe that's been considered in the design. I guess staff's recommendation is if council has further concerns that perhaps we can return to a committee of the whole or some other time to review in detail that Main Street Plaza design.
Just to understand that next touch point, is there something with just this process? Will we see this back for a development permit? Is that a better time, or is the existing development permit apply just in that sort of, I'm going to call unique chain of events or processes?
Through the chair, can I clarify if that's in relation to the Main Street Plaza design or the overall project?
I suppose something that captures the Main Street design, whether it's overall project or a specific building of, or just the Main Street design piece.
Yeah, so the Main Street Plaza design is being actively worked on through the servicing agreement process. So engineering is leading that, and we have a mostly finalized design at this stage, and it's going to be secured through that servicing agreement process.
And would that need to have council approval? So that would be our opportunity to weigh in on that, or is that something that's in a staff?
Servicing agreements are at the staff level.
Okay, upon that, Councillor Stoner.
Thank you, through the chair. I do just want to seek clarity on the building height component. In the staff report, it says the northern building is moving from 20 meters to 20.8 meters. But I also heard the addition of another floor from 4 to 5. Can staff just clarify the stories and height and what's driving that variance?
Yes, so through the chair, in the original CD 37 zone, the property was portioned into a southern building and a northern building. The northern building included both the mixed-use residential and commercial building, as well as the office component attached to the northern building. And that was given a height maximum of 20.0 meters. And so the applicant is asking for 20.8 meters in this rezoning application, which would apply to both the mixed-use component as well as the hotel component. The hotel component was originally 4 stories, and the developer has asked to go to 5 stories in order to accommodate more financial viability of the project. And that would be still less than the 20.8 meters.
Thank you for that. Council. Councillor Hamilton, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I hadn't so it's the height that I'm concerned about, the height at this moment, specifically around a rezoning. I understand that rezonings before we had advice from fire to bring the heights in line with what our fire service can manage. And if this project wasn't coming for a rezoning, then it could move forward that way. But the project as a whole is coming forward for a rezoning, because we don't rezone, like the north and south portion don't get rezoned separately. So I'm feeling a bit of I'll say this to my council colleagues, I'm feeling some discomfort in allowing a rezoning that we knowingly goes beyond the height limits that our fire service can provide, because we have that lever right now. So can staff speak a little bit more to what the impact of allowing a building above our, I don't even know what to call the limit, but the limit due to fire safety from our fire service provision?
Through the chair, I just want to clarify that it's not that staff didn't check with the fire services at the time of that rezoning, is that the understanding in the district overall has evolved. So we have new understanding and as a result, new standards for building heights. The concern from a fire perspective includes 6-story buildings as well, because you need so many firefighters to be present for fire to safely enter a building, especially mid-rise buildings and high-rise buildings. And so the line was drawn at mid-rise buildings because we do not have a full-time fire department to put a limit on that sort of exposure or the risk of not being able to respond if there are other things happening in the district. But as Ms. Philp suggested, it's a best practice, and so we've established 6 stories as the limit for now until the fire department gets to a full-time contingent.
And I seem to recall from previous rezoning conversations about height variances, an 18-meter limit. The fire regulation is 18. The ground of the highest residential floor must be 18 meters or less above ground level. Do I have that correct?
Through the chair, I believe it's the building code that kind of separates what's a high-rise building from a mid-rise building, and that is the 18 point some meters from the road, essentially where a fire truck would be parked.
And how far does this proposed building deviate from that 18-meter floor? The floor of the build, that top floor being 18 meters.
Through the chair, I need to double check, but when I was looking at it this afternoon, I measured 22 point something meters to the 8th floor.
Thanks.
Okay, Council, I'm through the speakers list. If there's additional questions, perhaps ready for a motion, Councilor Pettingill?
A process question, because I heard that service agreement was in staff's hands, but if council was interested, like I want to tread carefully, because my recollection is that we had talked about access to Junction Park and wanting to ensure that, and so just wanting to make sure that that's not lost. Is that a best handle as a subsequent motion after we decide on which way we go here? Because either way, whether we rezone it or not, it still has this plaza. And I think, we're talking about investment in the Junction Park bathrooms and so on. So there's a whole few pieces that go together. So I just want to make sure that thread, or we have an opportunity to discuss whether or not that thread gets lost.
Okay, I'll go to, if someone wants to weigh in, they can. We also, I'm getting a timeout signal from our CEO. So let's take a 5-minute timeout. And just before we do that, was there anything else that anyone felt was unresolved in this that we may need staff to huddle on? Okay, so we'll break 5 minutes. We'll be back at 1:15, and we'll continue when we have an answer to Councillor Pettingill's inquiry. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're back from a brief timeout, so staff can find answers for an outstanding question from council. But I'll turn it back to staff.
Thank you. Through the chair, to address council's first question about securing the commercial retail units, both the development permit architectural plan package as well as the building permit package shows the commercial retail units at grade. So staff are confident that that's secured. But if council wishes, we can also include some sort of clause in the land development agreement amendments to secure the amount of commercial retail space.
Okay, Councilor Pettingill, does that address that question? I believe there's another piece to this, which was the plaza. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, through the chair. So to reiterate, staff are processing this through the servicing agreement, so it stays delegated at the staff level. That being said, staff did consult with the manager of cultural services as well as the main users of the pavilion who rent out the pavilion for events every year. And both of those groups have reviewed the most recent plans. And so staff are also confident that there's adequate access that addresses the needs of the primary users of the pavilion.
Okay, do you have a follow-up? Go ahead.
Yeah, just being involved recently in many events there, the sort of renderings show many of the key critical access points and so maybe they haven't spoken in terms of the renderings to those folks. I just want to make sure that Squamish Arts or whoever is looped into these discussions, or we do need a discussion, I think, about what is our intention for that park.
So do we have a list of who is is Squamish Arts on that list that might just take care of the concerns today, or do we know that, or is that not something that we can share in a meeting?
I would have to go back and look at the list. I know that there was 3 community groups that we consulted with for this design.
Okay, let's ponder that for now, and we can see if we need to come back there. Councillor Stoner, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. I'm just trying to wrap my head around process here. It feels sticky to me that I went back into the history of the file. The development permit was approved in 2021. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So it continues to be my understanding that development permits should only last for 2 years. How is it that we still have an outstanding development permit 5 years later with approvals for things that are now no longer relevant to the file?
Through the chair, the primary reason that the development permit has been extended to up to this 5-year mark is due to the design changes and complexity. So the developer has also done 2 delegated development permit amendments during this time frame because there's been civil changes such as stormwater management that have impacted the design. And then the other reason for the extensions has to do with staffing capacities. There's been challenges over the past few years in the engineering department in terms of capacity. So the servicing agreement was not necessarily being processed in a timely manner.
So where do we sit with the current development permit, which requires items like cash in lieu of parking, a change in the housing agreement numbers and number of resident or like affordable units? Like, how do we amend the DP if this rezoning goes through? Does they come back for a new DP?
Through the chair, they'll come back for another DP amendment to capture these changes that they're proposing. And as part of that amendment, we would redo the housing agreements to ensure that they capture the additional units, as well as hopefully bring them up to date as the housing agreements were also done in 2021.
Okay, one of the items that was actually presented and flagged from Councillor Hamilton's question was actually the DP at the time also provided an additional height variance to building 1 to 30 meters, which is far beyond what is currently acceptable now that we have more information 5 years later with our fire department. So I'm wondering if staff can reflect on that, where we have a building that is not is 30 meters in height.
Through the chair, I believe that additional variance granted through the DP 521 was only for the elevator and the stairwells in order to access the rooftop amenity space. So we wanted to make sure that that was crystal clear for the building permit process.
Councillor Hamilton, go ahead.
Sorry, that generates more questions. So the 27 meters, 27 or so meters that the building height is currently restricted to in the building bylaw, there will be the building is still planning on going to 30.7 meters as per the 2021 DP application, DP approval. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I'll maybe try to pull up or find an image, but on that 8-story building, there's a rooftop amenity space, and in order to access that amenity space, they need elevator and stairwell structures that exceed the 27 meters. So the top of the roof of the building is 27 meters. The top of the stairwell and the elevator pop-ups to access the amenity space are the 30 meters.
And in our zoning bylaw, when we have a height limit, what does that mean? Does that not include those protrusions?
Through the chair, in this CD 37 zone, the way we drafted the height maximum is included an exemption for these stairwells and the access to the rooftop amenity.
If I could also just add one consideration for council, the original rezoning adoption or development permit also included a CC payment to the district, which was based on the residential floor area. So any reduction in residential floor area would probably then have to come with that consideration.
Okay, Council, we've additional questions here. Go ahead.
So sorry, just so I'm clear. So we, during the first go through of this, we were at a point where we were comfortable with 8 stories for the southern portion after talking to fire department. So we went with that. Now we are sort of, as we've heard, looking at, although we're not making many changes to the southern end, we are considering the whole rezoning for the whole development. Did we speak to on this go around to the fire department and say like, hey, is this something we should be looking for as we're sort of deciding where we can give and take about, is this something that's critical to address, or we're okay with sort of where we are and accepting that it's sort of where we've been, or do we have that conversation?
Through the chair, the project or this rezoning was referred to Squamish Fire Rescue, and they reviewed it, and they didn't provide any comments to what you're speaking to about being like, this is not acceptable from our perspective.
Okay, I'm through my speakers list, Council, so I'd be looking for motion, either staff recommendation or something else. Is someone ready prepared to move? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor French.
No, move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Anderson seconds. Would you like to speak to it? Nope. Go to seconder. Councillor Anderson, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you. It occurred to me just now that, and we may have addressed this last time, but this is on a truck route. And I trust that consideration of the turning of tractor trailer units on the southeast corner is addressed in our plans. I just mentioned that in passing, but I assume that that is the case. As regarding the parking plan, it will, I believe, be another experiment. I think that we're in a learning process with these measures, and we should be ready to monitor its success and learn from the experience of the parking plan in this development. With respect to the public art and landscape plan or plaza design, which we have addressed earlier, in addition to the proposed double-headed serpent mural facing the Channel waterfront, which will really be something special, the proponent has made a plan in the plaza together with local railway heritage community partners, namely the West Coast Railway Association. And I mention this because this celebrating of railway heritage of Squamish and of this particular site, Main Street, where every single steam locomotive the railway ever had was photographed very nicely in front of the chief. This will be well received by the tourist clientele of the proposed hotel. I believe that this proposed building on the northern end of the development will be well located for hotel use. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I will support the motion on the floor. I think I got hung up with a previous decision of council, and granted this is a rezoning, and so it does open up the conversation. But it more so, I think, continues to reiterate my point of sunset clauses in rezonings and or being really, I think, wrapping our heads around how development permits can last for this long. I appreciate that there are challenges on both sides. But one of the safeguards in my conversations around sunset clauses is we talk about DPs having an ability to only last for 2 years. And here we see that there's no shovels in the ground across the street, but the DP still exists 5 years later. And we're going through a rezoning process with a development permit that now will need to be amended. And so the process is challenging. I think if I take a few steps back and I look at the application before us, I absolutely agree that I think that the trade-off here for some office space to tourist accommodation will be well served in our community. It's a use that has long been needed, and I hope that this one pencils out. We've approved a few hotels in the past that also haven't really come to fruition, but we know that our community desperately needs them, and it would be well served, I think, in this location. The amount of parking spaces on site, I think, meet and exceed our parking requirements. I am curious how the tandem parking will work out, but that'll be for the folks who decide to live there. And I definitely have some hesitations around the total height of the building on the south end. But that is an approval that we have provided in the past. So this is increasing the amount of employment space, increasing the number of affordable rental units on site, and providing a new use that I think our community has been asking for a long time. So I'll support the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm actually quite torn on this one. The hotel use, I think that's okay. I'm supportive of the transitioning to the hotel use. I think it's a reasonable and appropriate place for a hotel in our downtown, and we know from our conversation with Tourism Squamish and the numbers from Tourism Squamish that that is a use that's needed. The piece I'm struggling with is, and on tandem parking, my view on parking is that that should be the developer's choice. So that's, I'm happy if they want to do that, that's fine. It's regarding the height, and this is, I recognize that this is a previous decision of council to allow that height, but it was before we had additional information, before we had additional insight. And when we have a rezoning application, it's a rezoning application for the whole zone. It's not just for this one piece or that one piece. It's for the whole zone. And while I certainly see how the proponent wants to keep it constrained to this hotel piece, I see this as a rezoning on the whole thing, and I can't, because of the fire safety issue, this has been brought up to us in several rezonings regarding our height limits, that this is a fire safety issue. And I can't bring myself to agree to a rezoning that goes beyond what we've been advised is beyond our fire department's capacity to address. So I won't be supporting the motion on the floor. Thanks.
Councilor Pettingill.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn here myself. I think in isolation, what I've heard and the fact that this was referred to our fire department, they didn't raise red flags, gives me some comfort. But for me, there is a disconnect now because of what my colleague said, where we have heard on many other instances like this is a problem, and here all of a sudden it's not. And so have we foregone critical below market units or other community benefit that we actually had an opportunity to achieve on other recent zoning? So and so is this the one where we need to tweak something and address something, or are those other ones sort of, or I'm having trouble wrapping my head around that disconnect. Again, I'm not sure I want to hold this one responsible because maybe this one isn't the problem. Maybe it's those other ones where we've gone offside. And then I want to be cautious about, again, getting into micro design of a park interface. But it did come to committee of the whole, and we talked about as a council things that were important as part of what this boulevard would be and how it would function and so on was part of the discussion and what we are trading and so on. And so I'm also a little bit resistant to the idea that council has no say in terms of making sure that some of these key functionality pieces are there. So I do want to make sure that we find a way for that to get addressed. Again, that's maybe not the key of what's asked for here, but sort of ensuring, because this redesign of that part of the park is part of this whole thing, I think it is something that we need to address. So I'm sort of leaning towards supporting this, assuming we get Junction Park dealt with and making sure that appropriate vent access is supported. But if I do that, I'm going to have a lot more questions about other rezonings if we're saying it has to be capped at 6. And there's one other key thought which I'm blanking on now.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah. What? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'll come back to you, Councillor Sutter. The process here has been as we've sort of even understood it more throughout the course of the discussion is challenging, and however, given where we are, these are the cards that we're holding. I'm supportive of. I will be voting in support. I think the minor height amendment that we're actually dealing with here makes good sense to me and has good rationale. The change in use, we did hear from Tourism Squamish the economic impact study, and at this point in time, we know that tourism in Squamish generates over $400 million in annual visitor spending and provides north of 3,600 jobs. And one of the limitations of seeing even a higher impact in the community is the availability of fixed roof accommodation and driving those overnight stay numbers. So I think this is an important change. And of course, the overall project does have 30 affordable rental units and all the other benefits of really activating a sort of a precinct of the community that its current state is really a drain on what's happening here. So I'm happy to see this move forward. And I know that quite often it just on the matter of the main street plaza, when we have discussions and give direction for staff to go and secure those outcomes, I have a high degree of confidence that that can happen, and I think we've provided enough direction there. But I would entertain a subsequent motion to this if that was on that particular matter, if that was what council deemed appropriate. Councillor Stoner, did you have an additional comment on this or amendment?
I don't have an amendment, just an additional comment for my council colleagues' consideration as I opened up the zoning bylaw to refresh my memory. The update that we made in 2023 to section 4.10, height of buildings and structures, F, does actually set the maximum height at 26.5 meters or 8 stories.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And opposed? Councillor Hamilton, Greenlaw opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Penigo.
I think I would like a motion or some direction from staff of sort of an appropriate way to make sure that I think some of the council feedback when we first looked at this in the committee of the whole is being sort of incorporated in whatever service agreement.
Yeah, Ms. Glende?
Thank you. Through the mayor, when staff did take time out to answer some of the questions, we did discuss and they assured me that the feedback that was previously provided by council has been and will continue to be incorporated in the design through the servicing agreement.
Okay. With that, I suggest that we move on with the agenda here. So next up we have the bylaw notice enforcement and municipal ticket information bylaw amendments. And maybe we'll just take a quick 5-minute recess to reset and give staff opportunity to get set up. So brief recess, 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now on to the bylaw, notice enforcement, and municipal ticket information bylaw amendments. I will turn over to staff to run us through the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Andrea Stokes, Licensed and Property Use Inspector with Community Safety and Development, specifically Building Services at the District of Squamish. Joining me, you know, as Jonas, and online, I believe we have Harry Gill, Manager of Bylaw Services, to provide both technical and procedural support. We're here today to present two bylaw amendments, which are the Bylaw Notice Enforcement Bylaw number 3240, 2026, and the Municipal Ticket Bylaw number 3241, 2026, for council consideration of first, second, and third readings. The recommendations presented by staff are administrative in nature to align with the District of Squamish Building Bylaw number 1822, 2004. For background and legislation, the Bylaw Notice Enforcement Bylaw number 2418, 2016 was adopted in March 2016 through the Local Government Bylaw Notice Enforcement Act as the legislation that governs municipalities to assign bylaw penalties and administer dispute resolution through an independent adjudicator. The Municipal Information Bylaw number 1832, 2004 was adopted in October 2004 through the Community Charter Bylaw Enforcement Ticket Regulation. This bylaw allows municipalities to carry higher penalties, and any dispute resolution is referred to the BC Provincial Court. Both bylaws serve as useful enforcement tools for municipalities. The purpose of our proposed changes is specifically an administrative update to both Schedule Ds to A, align the penalties to our building bylaw number 1822, 2004, B, remove duplication, C, and remove the compliance agreement. Building services practices are first and foremost to encourage voluntary compliance. We initiate with education and guidance, then if necessary, we move through the enforcement process with verbal warnings, followed with written notifications, and if there's no progress towards compliance within a reasonable timeline, we escalate by issuing a bylaw offense notice, a ticket. Currently, the administrative discrepancy between the penalty table or Schedule D within these bylaws and the building bylaw does not permit us to issue tickets effectively. We're here today because while our enforcement bylaws and ticketing have been effective to date, recent disputes have been challenged our administration and brought discrepancies to light, which essentially nullifies tickets under the redlined sections. Let me just see here. So this is our enforcement process. Next steps, if council gives 3 readings to the proposed amendment bylaws, staff will bring bylaws back for consideration of adoption. And following adoption, the bylaws will come into effect. The delays for approval impact the administration of enforcement penalties due to inconsistencies and duplications. Do you have questions?
Thank you for the presentation. Questions, Council? Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I was just curious why there's some sections of the building bylaw that aren't referenced in the notice of enforcement and ticketing bylaw. So section 4.9, which says a person must not repair a building or structure damaged by fire, so on and so forth. Like that's not referenced in the notice of enforcement bylaw. I'm just curious why that would be absent.
Sorry, thank you. Through the chair, I believe a lot of them can be covered under the umbrella of 4.1, which is construct, move, demolish. I have it written here. It encapsulates a lot of the a person must not commence or continue any construction, alteration, excavation, reconstruction, demolition, removal, relocation, or change the use or occupancy of any building or structure, including placement of foundation forms or other work related to construction.
Okay, so not every section of the building bylaw needs to be referenced. We can use kind of that umbrella section.
Through the chair, correct.
And then a tangential question. I'm just curious if we have other bylaws that might have this administrative hiccup or like discrepancy to them, or if we have a list of them that we're working through, or if this kind of seems to be the only one.
Through the chair, there's two bylaws, and they both require these amendments.
So
Outside of these two bylaws?
Yeah, sorry, outside of the building bylaw, if there are other bylaws that have discrepancy with the notice of enforcement.
Yes, through the chair, there are discrepancies, and staff, we do track them, and as time allows and capacity is available and urgency presents itself, we try to work through those discrepancies. Yes.
is it fair to say it's just a sort of an ongoing process as things change, as these discrepancies will evolve or become apparent? Like it's doesn't feel like anything that's ever really completely done. Is that a fair assessment?
Very fair. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, council? I had a question around. It's interesting which pieces of this are so hyper specific and others are captured under a broader umbrella. There's a whole section around the many different places and ways you can fail to install a fire suppression system. But the dollar values are the same through, like, why does that one need take up so much space and needs all these different ways that you can fail to install a fire suppression system?
Through the chair, $500 is the maximum fine that can be used to enforce under the ticketing, under the bylaw, notice enforcement bylaw.
Yeah, so it says this whole section 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, 16.4 are all about failing to install fire suppression systems. It's just one is in a two-family dwelling, which I think we'd say maybe multifamily. But anyways, the next one is in a portable or classroom or auto body shop, and the other one is in a single-family dwelling. I just wonder, like, why those need individual ones where we use sort of an umbrella to capture a bunch of other offenses.
It's a great question, and I am no expert, but I have a feeling that it may have to do with some restrictions that came in years ago around requirements for fire protection. And so at one point it was an unrestricted matter. And then I don't remember the exact date, but the Building Act changed where essentially local governments could not prescribe fire requirements to certain buildings, like especially smaller size buildings. So this could be a remnant of that era where we don't want to change anything that we already had in the bylaw, essentially, that relates to fire suppression systems in smaller buildings.
Okay, so it's very specific and intentional, not just two varying approaches.
Yes, essentially I believe that the case may be that we want to avoid changing whatever we already have in the bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, this seems like a can of worms, but so we have two-family dwelling, single-family dwelling, portable classroom, and auto body shop. What about fourplexes, which are obviously going to becoming much more common in Squamish? Do we need another one to do triplexes and fourplexes?
Through the chair, I'm not as familiar with the fire services bylaw, fire protection bylaw, but they may cover that. Again, the umbrella of 4.1 covers most construct without a permit.
Okay, thanks. And presumably fire suppression is part of a permit, and that's a part of the inspection, right?
Through the chair, yes.
Thanks.
Okay, just as I reflect on this, we're also, this piece of work is meant to reflect the sort of implement existing policy. So we're trying to get into, like, I think there's a line here where we start looking into changing what that policy is. So I feel like we may have come through the the conversation with that. So we do have the recommendations before us, which I'm prepared to move. Are you seconding that? Yeah, thank you. as came up in the conversation, this is a really iterative, ongoing process with all of our bylaws to ensure that we're consistent across the board. And the changes here are well reasoned. And I think in our conversation here, we ran up against the the temptation to start talking about the regulations themselves rather than these mechanisms. So I'm happy to support this and this refinement, and hopefully we can this will be simpler and easier for everyone to use that interfaces with it, both staff and the public. So happy to support. Comment, Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, just a bit of information sort of tangential to this, but because a comment was made about why these different things is the fine 500 for all of them. LMLJ, Lower Mainland Local Government Association, did some advocacy to the province, and I guess the sort of there's a lower evidentiary requirement for these sorts of tickets, and that's tied to a maximum. So if you're going to do much larger fines, then the level of evidence would be required to be much higher. I think the point was made to the government that these limits were set decades ago and haven't kept pace, and so we have fines that actually aren't an incentive for certain life safety things and so on. And so the government is taking that away. But that was kind of the sticking point in why we see sort of fines, which I guess depending on your circumstance, but arguably seem too low for the offense.
Thank you for that. Do you want to take debate? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll take the bait on that. I noted that our penalty for operating a business without a business license was $100. Whereas our business license is $160. So the license itself is more expensive than the fine, but there's other consequences than just paying the fine. So thanks.
Well, I think I'm going to caution all of us to getting too far into that one and how often that fine can be levied and so on and so forth. But I understand broadly the how these things don't make all of the sense all the time. Any other comments on this specific matter? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we're on to the appointment of community patrol officer. And we don't have any, as is our practice, we don't have any presentation with these. So recommendation for a new staff member to be appointed as such, moved by Councillor French. I'll second that. Any comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So this next item is another. We're dealing with some sort of anomalies today. Ms. Fonbudo, would you like to speak to this in any way, or do you want me to take a swing at it and you can correct if I'm offside? So just the structure of the community forest, both parties, being the District of Squamish and the Squamish Nation, through their own independent processes, appoint to the company. And that happens it's happened at this table, it's happened through the process at Squamish Nation. Papering that happens through another process, which you're seeing here, wherein both parties need to sign off on any changes to the officers of the company. So in this case, this is a removal of a former elected official that was appointed to the board. This has already been through Squamish Nation's process, and they've endorsed her removal. And this is us being asked to move this forward and move this forward with our piece. So this has already been sort of through. It's interesting. This appointment is by the Squamish Nation to and authorized by both the appointment and the removal, but we need to do this step to certify it. Does that match? Is there another factor to this that I didn't touch on, Ms. Fonbudo?
No, the only thing I would add is that with the officer and delegation bylaw, for the mayor and the corporate officer to execute anything, it needs approval from council, which this fell into a bit of it wasn't clear. So we wanted to ensure that council endorsed the mayor and corporate officer executing this. And as the sole shareholder for the Squamish community for the Squamish Community Forest. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions I will endeavor to answer? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you through the chair, and thanks for bringing this forward. I think it obviously makes good sense when we have a past elected official who's appointed to the board. I'm just curious about reappointing someone else from the Squamish Nation in terms of
So,
making.
so we'll need to do a subsequent process to endorse their appointee. It's the same, it's an in out, but that's not happening at the same time. So yes, you may see this again when that happens, and there will also be just forthcoming some other community forest information coming to council, but this is very focused on just this task. So if there's no further questions, I'll move the resolutions as presented, second by Councillor Hamilton. Yeah, thank you. This is a strange process that we need to go through here for this, but I'd like to thank former Councillor Joyce Williams from the Squamish Nation for her work on the board of the community, or actually broadly as an elected official, but specifically for her work on the community forest and her time there. I look forward to seeing the newest appointee when that comes to pass. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We have no late agenda items, no correspondence action requested. We do have items referred from the consent agenda. So let's go through. We don't. The minutes are good. It was correspondence, all of it. So we'll go in the order that they appear in the agenda. So I pulled the item 2, which was the correspondence from Mr. Roberge regarding the American flag, and Councillor French pulled the next letter down. I think, yeah, both of these deal with, in my opinion, both of these letters deal with different aspects of the discussion we had a few weeks ago about the flag. One is essentially providing perspective from a ongoing user, or I don't think on behalf of a user group, but an ongoing user at of the ice rink from a hockey perspective, and the other is from perspective of someone on the day of. I wanted to I was going to pull the second piece as well, just to give an opportunity for further discussion on this matter. I think when we originally made the decision, these were the types of community voices that we didn't necessarily hear from, or we assumed the opinion of when we made the decision. So I'd like to thank both of them for bringing their perspective forward, and I'll turn it over to Councillor French. Would you like to speak to either one?
I will speak specifically to the other letter, and I struggle with the pronunciation of the last name here. I think it's Crum, and if I've got that incorrect, I apologize. There was a specific request in the letter that asked council to reconsider the previous motion regarding the American flag at Brennan Park. And when this letter came in, soon after it came into my inbox, I replied and entered into a bit of a dialogue. And I indicated to the writer that I committed to bring this back to council to provide the opportunity for council to reconsider. And in doing so, I'm not prepared to put a motion on the floor. However, I thought it was reasonable for us at minimum to consider reconsideration. So I'm going to leave it there. And if anybody from council would like us to reconsider this, I'm all ears.
Just going to do a quick process check here, agnostic of which way this goes. We do have processes for reconsideration of a decision. We also can pass new motions. So just if this was to be which path is available to us as we sit here, given that this is a matter that needs to be dealt with before the next regular meeting if we're to take a different course of action. So that's a question to our corporate officer.
Thank you for the question. So based off of the procedure bylaw, you know that it has to happen within 30 days. So if there is a council member that would like to present the decision for reconsideration, it would have to be a member who voted with the majority, either for or against, so for in this case. So council would have to put a motion on the floor to consider reconsideration. And if that motion is carried, then the motion regarding the flags would be put back on the floor as if it had not been voted on previously. And it would be up for council debate and essentially a revote.
Do we know if this has been actioned? I know there was some, it's not as simple, not necessarily a simple thing. There's a lift and I don't know what, if we have the capacity to sort of, if something's been actioned, has been one of the pieces. I know it feels simple, but it may not be as simple as putting back up. Do we have any clarity into that?
We don't, but the bylaw does say that council may only reconsider a matter that has not been acted upon by any officer, servant, or agent of the municipality. So without that.
So without that information, if we were to reconsider but had been actioned, then our motion would be void? Is that what would happen? Or, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how to deal with this so that we stay on side wherever way it goes. Would you like a time? I'm welcome a timeout if we need. Yeah, go ahead.
I would get a temperature check from my council colleagues if anybody's interested in reconsideration before we send staff down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out the process thereof.
Okay. Fair enough. I think that my understanding of that, although it wasn't in the corporate officer's remarks, was that anyone that voted in the majority or the mayor has opportunity to bring this back. That's correct. So I would like us to reconsider the motion. I'm looking for reconsider that decision. I'm looking for a mechanism to do that. Whether that's I put forward a motion right now that's just on this matter, or if it's an actual reconsideration of. I think either path is available to us at this point. So I'd be looking for guidance as to which path to choose.
Sorry, can you walk me through that again?
So I see two paths for this. One is I'd like to reconsider this. So I would need to bring forward a motion that we reconsider. And if it's seconded, we have a debate whether we do or not. Is it not the same mechanism if I was to make a different motion on this matter based on the correspondence that we've heard? Is it 6 of one, half dozen of the other, or is there a preferred path from staff?
I would say that would be a good discussion for council, how you'd like to approach that, because you'd be putting two motions that might contradict each other in quite short succession.
Yeah, I could repeal one and do the other.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Peggy.
Yeah, through the chair, just to confirm that the motion, the previous motion has not been actioned so far.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pettingill. Then Councillor French.
Yeah, I mean, procedure-wise, I think if we are going to reconsider this, we should do it formally through reconsideration. Otherwise, you end up with, in the whole point of the reconsideration is that you don't oscillate back and forth from week to week depending on who's in attendance. And so I think that's what that mechanism is there for. So if that's where we want to go, we should see if there's a seconder.
Okay, Councillor French.
I wish to be clear. Did I just hear from Ms. Wangi that the flag is still up at Brennan Park?
That is correct.
Thank you.
So I would need to pull the motion from the minutes. You have it here. So I'll move that council reconsider the motion. That the following motion from the May 19th, 2026 regular business meeting, that council directs staff to remove the American flag from the Brennan Park Arena. And if it's seconded, I'll speak to it. It's no seconder for the motion. So I guess that's, I'd be looking for a receipt of these letters.
I'll move to receive both of these letters.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Comments? Go ahead, Councillor French.
Like you, Mayor Herford, I appreciate that we've heard from, quote unquote, the other side of this flag issue. One of the important things that we do in these chambers is listen to our constituents. And I think that what we've done tonight is exactly that. We made a decision a couple of weeks ago to bring this flag down based on, as we heard from two writers, one request from one grad parent. And by having this conversation tonight, it's clear for me that the decision we made a couple of weeks ago is the decision.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Pennegild and Greenlaw. And then
Yeah, I think I said before, discussion on flags is a challenging discussion and I think requires a lot more work. But given where we are in the interim, I feel this is the appropriate decision. I know that culturally, my understanding is, especially in the US, flags are particularly important and they don't necessarily have the same level of relevance in Canada, which is where we are. That doesn't mean I ignore the impacts. I know for me personally, and where was feeding into my decision is it is not an assessment of individuals, and there's a lot of things I value of and from folks that come from the U.S. But on a bigger political level, the amount of global turmoil we're seeing from that nation right now is really, really challenging. And so on top of everything that's already challenging about flags, for me, it is about sort of a response to national policy. And there are many things that are challenging circumstances in Canada, but trade wars and all of those things are having a big impact. And so for me, from that sort of big P political perspective, as opposed to individuals in our community who I do value and very much appreciate being here in that exchange between individuals. But that flag piece, it was a step too far at this point in time for me. So I'm comfortable with where we landed.
thank you, Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just preface my statements by saying I'm the only person in my household who is not an American citizen. I was formerly a PR in the United States, and the vast majority of my family is American. And I am completely in support of the decision we made a few weeks ago. I think there is, I mean, my impression is this person who submitted the letter is assuming that we had one person give this feedback when in fact I heard from several people that this was an issue. So it wasn't an isolated comment, and whatever their reasons were for not wanting to have an American flag on the stage, mine are purely political. I don't support what he's done to women. I don't support illegal wars in foreign countries. I don't support condoning genocide, and I think it's fair to not make our youth stand in front of that flag. That's not necessarily entirely what the flag represents, but there are many people in that class, I'm sure, who are dual citizens of other nations. And are those flags up? Like, are we going to put every nation's flag up? I think, again, when we left it for discussion, it was a little bit open-ended. So when it goes back up, if it goes back up, for instance, when hockey starts coming through and there are Americans coming to Canada to play sports, then perhaps we will, the next council will reconsider bringing it back up. But To this point right now, again, it was not just an isolated letter that flagged this concern, and we're not representing any other dual citizenship. So I think we're fine with what we decided. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. We'll support the motion to receive for these two pieces of correspondence and thank both the folks who took the time to write in with their perspectives. I do think that there are two different components here to be addressed. One is removing the flag for graduation, which I wholeheartedly agree is an important step and continue to stand by the decision. I appreciate Ms. Crumb's particular circumstances here, but I think to Councillor Greenlaw's point, like there are many folks in the graduating committee that likely have dual citizenship. It is a Canadian high school that folks are graduating from, and the US flag wasn't up there for graduation. It was up there for the hockey season and some of the US teams. And so those two are actually feel very separate to me. The decision to take it down for graduation, I think is a sturdy decision. With regards to putting it back up in time for if we do have American hockey teams come back, like that's the reason it was up in the first place. I also heard from staff that there is intention to bring a flag policy back. This is a complicated conversation. This isn't meant to be a knock on our southerly neighbors and the relationship building that happens through sport. That still happens, and that's important work. And we can do that by putting up a flag and welcoming those folks when they're here for a game. But it doesn't mean that we leave the US flag up in perpetuity just because. And so I stand by the decision that we made last week and appreciate the feedback that we've heard. And there will be more work on how we make sure that our flags are representative of our values of community.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just to reiterate, for me, this is not a political decision. This has nothing to do with the political situation in the US. It's got to do with the flags represent, during a ceremony, flags represent the institutions that led to that ceremony taking place. And while I recognize that there are some graduating students who are American dual citizens, perhaps just Americans, or dual citizens. To Councillor Greenlaw's point, I would feel it perfectly reasonable if we flew all of the flags of the nationality of every one of the graduating students. But in the absence of doing that, I don't think we should single out an American flag because there are some of our students from the graduating class from the US. So for me, it's not a political decision. It's not politically motivated. And I would be happy to see the US flag raised again for when the next hockey team comes to visit, so that they can see that ceremony take place, welcoming them back to Squamish. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a couple quick comments on this. I also see this as two separate issues. One is the request of a community group that is running a very important event in one of our spaces, and their wishes for what that ceremony could look like. Whether they get that right on behalf of everyone that's participating or not, which is what one of the letters really is about in my mind, is up. That's sort of an internal matter. I'm happy that to support that piece of it for that event. Where I was trying to take us with my suggestion that we reconsider was the going back up piece for following the event and what that, and so that any further and more permanent decisions could have a more reasonable discussion with the community. I understand that there's a flag policy under development, and it's something that likely for the next council to grapple with, and that's fine. The discussion here, I think, was really about what that baseline is, whether the baseline is starting from it not being there or starting from there being a change to what has been our practice to this point in time. So obviously I'll support receipt of these letters, and I do think that the discussion that we've had, not just here sharing the perspectives, but in community and resulting in this correspondence is just scratching the surface of whatever that future flag discussion will be. And I think we would, like many policies, we'd like to, when you really realize that you need it, it makes it a really challenging time to develop said policy. So I think that's where we are with the flag policy at this point in time. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. So the next matter is we received a letter from this very engaged and concerned citizen, Greenlaw, and we wish to discuss it further. Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, I'm probably going to need some help crafting a motion around this, but I would appreciate council support for submitting this as an emergency resolution for the upcoming UPCM convention in September. I think I made myself pretty clear in the letter as to why it merits emergency status, but also the contents of my concerns. And yeah, so I guess, I don't know, what do I say? I'd like to make a motion that council support this letter for submission to the UBCM. Does that do the trick?
I think it
And I'll speak to it as seconded.
It could, yeah. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Stoner seconds. Yeah, would you like to expand in some way?
Yeah, thanks. As many of you know, I've mentioned this before in chambers. I've been working with a few different groups on trying to get some traction on having the changes to the PST legislation that are set to take effect on October 1st of 2026, having those reversed because it's harmful for business in BC is the easiest way to summarize that. As I mentioned in the document, there are several online petitions that have thousands of signatures, and as I think I've mentioned this a few times, I have a legal petition going as well with that, which currently has hundreds of signatures. So there's this legislation is incredibly unpopular, and the voices that are coming out are like the BC Chamber of Commerce, the Vancouver Board of Trade, municipalities are coming out against it. Mining companies are complaining about like a whole litany of people. I really do think this is damaging legislation for a very minor return to the province, return for the province, I should say. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Any comments? Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank my council colleague for all of her work on this file. I'd say that this is one where you see unusual bedfellows who are rallying around the cry of this being a not so great idea across the board, from, as you mentioned, like small local businesses to the mining industry. And building housing, things that we know our province is trying to advance. This feels like it's really counter to, and so appreciate the work in bringing this directly to UBCM for discussion, deliberation with our colleagues from across the province. Happy to support it. Councillor
Pettingill and then French.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this. I think in general, I think tax is an incredibly valuable tool for us as communities to pool our resources to go further together than we could individually. But with this particular thing, what is being taxed, it's not luxury things primarily, or dealing with overconsumption and sort of incentivizing better behavior or anything. This is really in a large part going at critical sort of basic necessity services, not exclusively, but to a large degree. And so like my colleague said, we're being pushed to cut our own development cost charges and all these taxes so that development can come faster. And yet the province then wants to levy all these, engineers, architects, all the services you're required to do housing. And I could go on about where the province is offside on this, but in terms of everything the province says it wants to achieve, this seems so misdirected. And yeah, it does make for strange bedfellows, because in terms of some of the other supporters, I'm like, I generally do not align with those folks. But in this case, Yeah, and there are other resolutions, because this will have a big impact on municipalities, because we require architects and engineers and all those sorts of consultants as well. And so there are resolutions specific to this, but I think it is an issue bigger than just municipal corporations and those impacts. So for that reason, I think it is actually quite an important resolution for us to support, not just here, but when it gets to UBCM.
Thank you, Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I support the motion, and I'm hearing from people that I've had conversations with that this change in policy from the provincial government is having big impacts on many small businesses. So I'm being told clearly by business operators in our community that this is something that they support coming from this council.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hamilton, then Anderson.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm actually of two minds on whether the province, whether this is a good idea or not, because frankly, I don't understand the proposal, the extension in PST, or what taxes it may offset. And I know that that's the province is collecting taxation through provincial income tax and through sales tax. And so it is possible that they had a choice between increasing provincial sales tax or extending sales tax and increasing income tax. I wasn't purview to that conversation. I don't know the details, right? I know that we often ask the province to let us adjudicate within our jurisdiction. And this is clearly within their jurisdiction. And so I'm also of two minds whether we should tell them not to do something that's clearly in their jurisdiction. However, this is a UBCM resolution. This is putting it forward to the UBCM to ask if the municipal bodies want it to be advocated on their behalf. And from that perspective, I absolutely think this resolution should go forward, because it is a question that's what an advocacy body does, is advocate. Where I land on this issue is not necessarily in alignment with whether I support the issue going to UBCM. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you for those comments. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I think we should always be looking for opportunities to work together with the Chamber of Commerce on matters of advocacy vis-a-vis the province, and the BC Chamber, which Councillor Greenlaw has mentioned, is meeting today and tomorrow. And I believe tomorrow is their policy resolutions deliberation in Port St. John. It'll be interesting to follow the outcome of that gathering. And I do assume that the BC Chamber has this as a proposed resolution for their policy book. So I just wanted to make the point that it's something that we don't do enough of, is collaborate on advocacy topics with the Chamber movement. We are also doing this, by the way, on the BC Rail Line issue, and there is a resolution there in Fort St. John being deliberated as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have something to add?
Oh, yeah, just on that, I have been collaborating with our local chamber and have had several meetings with them about this.
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly, I'm happy to support this. I find it quite compelling the way that the argument that this expansion of PST is another way of shifting the tax burden onto the consumers to keep our local economies alive, and the suggestion that that an increase to PST would be better placed on non-essential luxury items in a way that targets those that can afford the increased costs, instead of putting this load onto the vast majority of residents. So I think I'm really aligned with this. I look forward to the conversation at UCM or UBCM. So thank you for bringing it forward. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had two other quick things. I just wanted to make sure procedurally, just asking some of the experts in the room here, if that's sufficient and that's what we need to do and that's all done. Yeah, like that's good enough for UBCM. And then like staff has, well, that one was mostly for Counselor Stoner. That's okay, right? Do you need anything? Is there anything else in like the motion language that needs to be correct for that to be submitted to UBCM as a resolution? I don't care who answers that.
I would say a next step would be that it would go to staff to submit through the normal process, and there may need to be some adjustment from that, but this will ensure that happens. I don't think we need to do anything else.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And then the other piece is just flagging that I think the resolution due date is June 15th, if I'm not mistaken.
We'll make sure to flag it for staff tomorrow so we get it in before the deadline.
Awesome, thanks. I'd appreciate a confirmation when it's sent to. And then there was one other piece that I had. Sorry, I meant to flag. I didn't flag this in the consent agenda. Oh, okay.
Just when we did the consent agenda, it was missed about an additional item for minister meeting. So just this, there was a suggestion that to keep us to not have to pull that back, we could do a motion here if council was supportive of that to make an addition there. So that's, and I advised, which was advised by our corporate officer. So I passed that to Councillor Greenlaw, and that's where we are now. So Councillor Greenlaw, back to you.
Okay, well, I guess I need a motion to this effect as well. Okay, well, I'd like to make a motion that council include a conversation about triple net leases to the item number 5, Ministry of Jobs and Economic Growth meeting that currently includes BC rail yards and implications of expanded PST, and I'll speak to it if seconded.
I'll second it. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, if you want to speak about what's damaging to small businesses, well, you have no better place to start than triple net leases. They're highly predacious, and they effectively put all of the risk of property ownership onto our small business tenants, or whoever the tenant is on a triple net lease, but a lot of them are small businesses, and all of the advantage of land ownership in the property owner's field. And so it basically introduces a level of volatility to small businesses, or again, anybody who leases the space, but it creates a level of volatility in monthly payments and an inability for businesses to basically predict their financial future. So my understanding is it's a type of lease that's structure that's only available in BC and Quebec. It doesn't exist anywhere else, or in Canada anyways. And it's just a piece that I know Tasha Henderson and Councillor Henderson and New West has done a lot of work on, a lot of really good work, and she's bringing it forward in resolutions to the UBCM as well. But it's just untenable. So I would like to raise that, personally with the Minister of Jobs and Economic Growth, and just point out how damaging it is to our downtown economy and our business economy in Squamish in general. Thanks.
Thank you. This is just a couple quick comments. I'll come to you, Councillor Anderson. This, I think, is an important discussion to have, and that we're sort of one of the outliers in regulating this area as a province. I know that the earlier we were talking about Chamber of Commerce and opportunities to collaborate. This has come up at the Chamber multiple times, and as at the provincial chamber AGMs, and given the composition of who's attending and voting at those, there's such a mix of tenants and landlords and owners that's been really challenging discussions. So I think local government might be best suited to sort of advance this this conversation, and advocacy has been underway on this from others inside local government, as we've heard. So happy to see this included, and yeah, I'll be supporting. Councillor Anderson.
I'm embarrassed to admit that I missed in the question about the consent agenda to pull the matter of the BC rail yards. And I'm not sure whether I'd be able to speak to that at this time.
Let's hold to this and we'll come back to your to that matter. We'll explore that. Any other comments on this particular motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. So apparently Councillor Greenlaw wasn't alone in the in wishing to address that. Maybe I'll get Councillor Anderson to sort of state what you'd like to accomplish, and then we'll look to staff to figure out how best for us to do that.
Very good. During our discussion last week, we actually didn't come to a consensus regarding the placement of the BC Rail Yards issue under the Ministry of Jobs and Economic Growth. We didn't take a vote, but I would not have voted in favor of that. I have a number of reasons and concerns that it should rather be placed under or with the Ministry of Transportation and Transit, or not at all. And I do have some reasons to offer for why it may not be a priority or a clumsy priority at this time. I'll leave it at that for now, but as to process, as to whether we can bring it back at this time, I'll leave it to staff and the mayor.
We get to make a suggestion on who addresses the topic with the province, and they often tell us who we're going to speak to. So I don't know if it's which ministry we direct it to. We could debate that at length in this room and have just a different outcome regardless of how we feel about it. So I don't know that we'll be well served to debate that particular aspect, given that it's our input. I don't know if it makes up more than, I suggest it makes up less than 50% of the of where it lands ultimately. But the matter of whether we should advance it or not, that I think is more feels more substantive to me. I don't know if there's interest. I don't know if I'm interested in that without hearing some more about it. But that's sort of where I am. I have Councillor Stoner had her hand up in the midst of my remarks, so I'll go to her next, and then we'll see what we can do here.
I think this is a question for staff. It was my understanding that Committee of the Whole, we directed staff to prepare the meeting requests, and that was going to come back to council, or are those being submitted directly based on the feedback provided last month?
That's a good question. The motion says prepare the meeting requests and briefs as discussed based off of the motion. It isn't clear if the intent was that they go directly to, they're directed directly, or if they were going to come back to council based off of this motion.
My understanding was that coming as a memo on consent agenda was how they were coming back to us, because there's not a staff really support except for executing it, and the discussion would be exclusively for council. So when we did the consent agenda, we essentially, that was our second touch point, unless we pulled them to have a deeper conversation here. So if we want to have, if there's any other, we've already had one example of something that needed to be added. We've got a second one. If there's interest in exploring the second one or some other conversation, I think we should bring back that whole do something so we can go through it and be sure. Or maybe we're okay with where we are process wise. We just didn't call it out in the when we're dealing with the consent agenda, as we don't normally do. So this was that touch point. Councillor Pennegill.
So my understanding, though, process-wise, is sort of we ask for these meetings, we suggest a minister, but they may say, oh, no, that's that minister. Then the next step is we develop briefing notes. We give those briefing notes with the province, and then they say, oh, actually, we should bring in this minister and that minister colleague, and that's how it gets addressed. And so to my mind, the time to flush out or really underscore for the province who we need to speak to is when we sort of discuss the briefing notes, if there's discussion there. And
yeah, I think that's That's fairly accurate, although there's pieces of this process that are opaque as they're belong to the province. But the what do I want to say? The level of detail that are being provided in the first touch point is a very small word count. Like it's really brief. And we also have the ability when we get those to prioritize in a different way the topics that we have there. Ideally, there's some movement on some of these files, and some of the pieces can become less urgent, and we can move some other things up. But that might that's my somehow I've maintained a high level of optimism as we've been in this room for many hours. So I don't think we need to that's where I was saying, I don't think we need to stick handle this too much as in the order or which ministry until we hear back and which ones we get. There might be some communities ask and don't get any meetings. So we'll see where that lands. I don't expect that to be us, but Councillor Anderson.
Yes, Mayor Herford, you aptly touched on the second issue that I would like to suggest, and that is whether it should be brought forward at all at this time. There's two considerations there. We've not discussed the Innovation Hub proposal in 6 years. And that proposal put together by our Economic Development Department 6 years ago did not include railway. And we have 2 new investors in the railway yards. They're significant investors and with some implications for us. They're in passenger rail area and in the short line railway area. The other matter is that whether we bring it forward to a minister's meeting, what is relevant is whether or not we apply for funding under the Federal Transportation Corridors Diversification Fund. That's a $25 million opportunity for us, up to $25 million for an application. And the railway yards are imminently eligible. Planning and infrastructure investments are imminently eligible for that program. So we might visit that question as to whether Squamish might prepare an application in collaboration with other local partners, because that has implications in what we bring in September in terms of issues and who we bring them to. The deadline for that is September, so what we would be doing is at the last minute asking for endorsement or reviewing why discussing that application with the province, which is important. So those 2 issues mainly, we have not updated that proposal in 6 years. And maybe we should have a look at it. And the world has changed. Our proposal refers to COVID and provincial COVID programs. It does not refer to other things that have evolved since then, other opportunities and the landscape for Squamish. In a nutshell, those are my concerns. It's not a biggie, but we need to think about tactics. We need to think about strategy in realizing our goals for the yards, and to reaffirm what they are and who may be involved. And I referred to the railway sector. Thank you.
Okay, so I think at this point, what we've done from a process perspective is it's included, and when we get it back, we figure out which minister meetings we have, and we have some time to figure out what we do with that as far as briefing note or order of prioritization, and go from there. So I'm going to suggest that we leave, that we don't, I don't think we need to revisit the minister meeting requests as a whole, but we absolutely will when we hear back from the province as to which meetings we have, and then we'll figure out how best to allocate our time in those, and we can have those discussions about the what the opportunities are and what the changes have been since we last engaged with them on this subject. Does that seem fair to you, Councillor Anderson?
Yes, I may add, Mayor Herford, if I may. As a matter of fact, the last time we had a meeting in Squamish on this file, Mr. Velaniskis, myself, Kate Mulligan, then Economic Development Officer, and Mayor Elliott met with not only the Minister Rolston, who represented energy, but with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure at that time. In fact, it was the Integrated Transportation, I forget, it's a long name for that division. So we did have 2 ministries represented there, and we can certainly request that in future as well. Keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're through the correspondence that was referred from the consent agenda. So I was going to orient myself here again. The business arising from the I think we've dealt with this. So I don't know that sorry, I'll look to council. I feel like have we resolved these matters? Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
No, I had pulled, and I believe this is what this is, and I think it's actually mistitled, the LMLGA resolutions, which were on our previous consent agenda, and I wanted to speak to those. And so that's the stuff from the last consent agenda that we pulled because we went so long last time.
So we don't have those included in their agenda. Are they? Oh, they're in there. It's just mislabeled here. Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. Do you want to start us off with those then?
Yeah, and I wanted to pull, so we had a copy of the decisions from the Lower Mainland Local Government Association conference on which resolutions we wanted to support going forward to UBCM. We included it in the package. We don't typically talk to these in any depth, but there's been so many conversations in the community where it is clear that folks really aren't clear on what different orders of the levels of government do, how they relate, what they can and can't do. So I just wanted to actually not go into depth in each one, but just call out some of the things that are being discussed by the body. And another thing that comes up, another reason to bring this up is sometimes I hear things about, why aren't you guys dealing with this thing that seems like there must be an obvious solution? Many of these things are challenges across communities across the province, and we do beg, borrow, and steal ideas where we can. We work together and collaborate, and these things haven't been solved because they are actually a lot more challenging than they may appear on the surface. So I just wanted to highlight a lot of the things that all of the attendees agreed. This is municipalities across the Lower Mainland, a majority of them, that these are problems we are all sharing and we'd all want to see a resolution to. So with that preamble, there's an emergency resolution.
Sorry, just can I support where you're going. Could I kindly suggest that you move receipt and then we can speak to it too, and we just
sure,
so we don't have to do this a couple of times.
Yeah, I'll move receipt.
I'll second it. Would you like to make comments on this piece?
Yeah. So with that preamble, just there is an emergency resolution from the Lower Mainland Local Government Association Executive asking the province to restore funding and support for critical capital projects in healthcare and housing, and ask for more sustainable police funding from the province, split assessment through a new commercial subclass. And this is about differentiating between small local business and sort of the major chains, and how taxation is done by both of those, or the tax burden between those two different classes, and understanding that there needs to be some nuance there. From Squamish, a resolution asking the province to enhance air quality regulation, and ask for the province and the feds to work with local governments and develop a homeless strategy, a cohesive homeless strategy. Increasing max fines from tree violations. And we've heard from our citizens that, why those trees cut down, or why is the fine so small from that? This is something that lots of people are challenged by. Tax fairness for port communities, engagement on pipeline assessment changes, funding for bookmobile library services, increased funding for libraries, enhanced provincial local consultation on any provincial initiative, triple net lease reform, which we've talked about tonight, preservation, revitalization of strategic rail corridors, and that's another one that came from Squamish and we've been talking about, and asking the province to reconcile their housing funding and the support they provide municipalities in terms of housing with the housing targets they've granted us. So these are things that we hear about in the community, we talk about here, and they are common across the province. And so this is where we do the work. We have two members of this table on the LMLGA board. Councillor Stoner is one level higher at the UBCM board, trying to get the province to listen to challenges we are facing as municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this piece? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
There was one other thing I wanted to mention. I believe there is a resolution in there from Abbotsford about the impact of the PST expansion on municipalities as well.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor French.
Councillor Greenlaw is absolutely correct. I have it right in front of me. It's R11, exempting local governments from expanded provincial sales tax, City of Abbotsford, and that was endorsed by the body. I support this motion, and yeah.
Thank you. Speaking in support, or does anyone else wants to make? Speaking in support of the motion, I find these resolution sessions to be really one of my favorite parts of our local government conference, and the matters dealt with here. I think we share a lot of we have a lot of skin in the same game as whether it was something that was brought forward by directly by us to this group or by others. I think he in Councillor Pettingill's remarks, he spoke to those like capital investments, infrastructure. What we're talking about there are things exactly like the long-term care facility that has been, air quotes, repaced here in Squamish. We know that the need has not been repaced, but the delivery has. And this is an issue that other communities are facing as well, but we are one of the highly affected in this way. And then there's other folks that bring forward things that I hadn't really contemplated, but I find are quite relevant to us. And I'll just highlight one here for consideration, which is the tax fairness report communities. So the mill rate has been capped for port facilities, which I understand why they want to protect the operation of the ports, but they're essentially subsidizing using municipal dollars to do so. And I think that I'm not saying ports shouldn't have some tax benefit and so on, but who should be providing that? And I think this is something that Delta is obviously highly affected from, and they brought forward this motion. And I find the argument quite compelling. And again, this isn't about it's about where that subsidy comes from. So there's very nuanced discussions here. I really encourage folks, if anyone's still tuned into this, to dig into this document, because it does show represent accumulation of a tremendous amount of work from a lot of elected officials and their staff from across the catchment area of the Lower Mainland Local Government Association. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Councillor Pettingill, did you intend your motion to capture the responses, or would you like to speak to those as well? We had two. Oh, Councillor Anderson, did you have the responses would you like to speak to?
Unless I may be jumping in the queue and Councillor Pettingill also wish to address it, but I do, yes, wish to address a particular motion.
He started the last one. You can go on this one. Go ahead.
As you may recall, last year, we submitted a resolution from the District of Squamish to the UBCM titled Provincial Financial Support for Municipal Industrial Planning. And the request was really that the province consider setting up a specific fund for industrial land planning, as it was not addressed in other funding programs, for example, real estate foundation or different provincial envelopes. So we've got a response, and the province has essentially declined to set up such a fund. And it has suggested there are 3 existing funds that we could apply for, 1 provincial and 2 federal. Well, unfortunately, the provincial fund that is referred to in the provincial response, Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program, which states that can be used for industrial land planning, we're not eligible. We're too large a community, and we're not well located. It's really for rural, capital R, British Columbia. So Squamish is not eligible for that provincial program. We may be eligible for the 2 federal programs that are indicated. And it's really up to us to take that initiative and explore them. I don't know what they may have to offer. We have in our official community plan, it's item 14.2C, a commitment to undertake regular inventory of industrial land. Our attention's been diverted to other files, housing, of course. We have proposals come forward. Just 2 weeks ago, Councillor Pettingill and I attended a session at the library where essentially it was suggested that some industrial land parcels or land zoned for an industry, designated for industry, should be explored for housing. In fact, we had a presentation a couple of months ago here in this chamber, a suggestion that lands designated for industry should be considered for housing. What I'm suggesting is the province is not going to solve our problems. We need to solve them ourselves. We may have these funding opportunities to look at, but in the end, the strategy has to be ours. There was another resolution at the LMLGA from Fraser Valley Regional District, and interestingly, it was amended in an interesting way. It was originally was going to call for a BC Industrial Land Reserve, and that has been talked about with respect to provincial policy. Not so much anymore. It's just not practical to set up a reserve. Instead, it's calling for a strategy. We need to set up a strategy for ourselves, and we should keep in touch with the province. The BC Rail Corridor, including our local rail yards, should be part of a provincial strategy. So I guess my message here is to report that we didn't win this time on setting up that fund that we could have applied for, but nonetheless, we need to strike out our own and find our own way on industrial lands. Thank you.
Thank you. And just before I have more comments, if someone could move receipt of this to get that, or we haven't had that yet, right? No.
No, I was just going to provide some clarity to Councillor Anderson that we actually are eligible for REDIP. We've received it for the Circular Economy Trailblazer program. And so we do qualify for that funding pool.
Not for long. With the next census data, we will be out of range for it. It's a limit of 24,999 persons. So we may have qualified in the past, but we won't any longer. Thank you. Unfortunately.
Limited time offer. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I'll move receipt. Second that. To me, this is an important piece of reporting back of progress and how we're, what replies we're hearing as we set up to do our advocacy. And they're not all, I'll say they're not all home runs, but I don't know if if there's a better way to score that. That's probably a gross understatement. I see no other hands for comment on this, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So that was our business arising. I do not believe we have any notice of motion. Open question period for anybody that has questions of clarity. Seeing no hands in the gallery for that this evening. Council or staff announcements. Would anyone like to offer up any announcements? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you. Capilano University put out a press release the other day, May 28, announcing 2026 honorary degree recipients and academic emeritus honorees. One of these persons is the late Chief Bill Williams, and he will be receiving a Doctor of Laws honoris causa posthumously. As per the press release, Chief Bill Williams' work spanned decades of service, including roles as Squamish Nation band manager, elected council member, and lead negotiator for Aboriginal rights and title. Under his leadership, according to continue the press release here, the Squamish Nation expanded its governance capacity, growing from a modest organization to one with 375 staff and a $100 million budget. Chief Williams was instrumental in securing over $3.6 billion in property acquisitions and protecting more than 20,000 hectares of wilderness through the Sacred Land Use Plan of the Squamish Nation. There's a couple of things that might have been mentioned in this press release. Chief Bill Williams is known nationwide for his contribution for a piece of legislation that was enacted in the late 1990s, namely the First Nations Land Management Act. It's federal legislation that ratifies a framework agreement on First Nation land management, allowing First Nations to opt out of the land management sections of the Indian Act. That was a journey for Chief Williams through the 1990s until the legislation was realized with Bill C-49. And there's been a journey for that legislation since. I met Chief Bill Williams in the 1990s when he played a role in our local war in the woods concerning the fate of Tree Farm License 38. And I found him to be not only a leader, but an extraordinary diplomat. He listened to everyone, and he had something to say to everyone. He led an initiative later to purchase Tree Farm License 38 on the part of the Squamish Nation in 2006 and establish a nation-owned forestry business arm. And that business arm has been a ready partner for the District of Squamish Nation jointly owned and managed community forest agreement. It was Bill Williams that spearheaded that initiative that later realized in that joint venture. So Chief Bill Williams was finally also a longtime chair, in fact, a founding chair of the BC First Nations Forestry Council. So I just thought that with this significant contribution, not only to the province and the nation, but the community of Squamish, that Chief Bill Williams should be recognized. I'm very happy to see that Catalina University has taken this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you for that spotlight. That's very important work, and yeah, thank you. Other updates, Councillor Pettingill?
Two, I'm going to give the one that I'm hoping one of my colleagues might jump in on because I'm drawing a bit of a blank, but a few of us spent a couple days up in Pemberton, regional hospital district meetings and regional district meetings. I think one thing that I will call out is the regional hospital district board approved a forgivable loan for a Harrow Road project in Pemberton, which I think follows the model of, and I'm drawing a blank, but where Foundry is Spirit Creek. Yes. And so the success there. And so we're hoping to see that replicated in a manner in Pemberton. So it's really exciting for our corridor, and to be able to provide that support for folks that need it in our corridor is really exciting. And maybe one of my other colleagues can pick up some of the other threads I'm missing there. The other thing, this past Saturday, I had an opportunity to help out with the Hike for Hospice fundraiser at Junction Park. And speaking of SLRD, our CIO, Heather Paul, was the MC. She was supported by hospice through the passing of her partner a few years ago. So it was a special event for her, and it was a beautiful day compared to last year. So it was great to see the community coming together, and it's just a really wonderful day. We had Cam Soleil and some of his students performing, and just thank you to everyone. Some things the community does better than government, and the hospice folks just do an excellent job in supporting some people in our community when they really need that support. So thank you to everyone who helps out with hospice.
Thank you. Other announcements? I'll run through a few pieces here. Since we last met, we had council. I attended a council tour of the Public Works facility. I think the vast majority of, if not everybody, was there. But it was great to see the new Public Works facility coming, the progress, and will be. I'm trying hard not to say it like I'm talking about the Death Star. It'll be operational this summer, but it is approaching completion, and just the attention to detail there and the vision around how this building is going to be used is quite remarkable. And that's before you even start comparing and contrast the current facility, which I have a challenge using that term for what's there, although our staff take great pride and care in their workplace. This is not one step forward. It's a properly addressing the needs of Public Works, and so I'm excited that I was excited to see the progress there, and look forward to being able to welcome community into the space when it's open. And I'm sure we'll have stay tuned for grand opening festivities. Following that, Councillor Greenlaw as acting mayor and I had mayor's drop-in in this room, and I want to thank everyone that came. We had I would say more people come and attend than I've had at a mayor's drop-in, and to be honest, the mayor's drop-in format is only really good for an amount that's probably less than what we had in the room. So as far as an informal conversation and, you know, there were some other items, but mainly the encampment and encampment response and BC housing proposals, and that was sort of the category of the main category of the conversation. We had community members speaking very honestly about their experiences and their concerns. We had people with lived experience in the room as well, and I really appreciated those perspectives, and particularly when community says this is what happened, and then someone in the back room says, well, that was actually me, and this is what actually happened. It was as much as there was emotions were high in the room. I think once we kind of got past that, there's actually some really good dialogue. I know that there'll be more engagement on how we address these issues as a community going forward, but that was well attended and I think productive. It did run a little over time, given the size. So thank you to staff that attended in support, and Councillor Greenlaw for her work there as well. So following that, attended the our Public Works barbecue and it was great to sort of get together with our Public Works team. This is part of celebrating Public Works Week, and the trivia was quite interesting. Went around and sort of spoke to all the different departments about the different pieces of work that they were doing, and sort of highlighted for me that the level of expertise and professionalism we have across the organization. And, you know, the vast majority of those folks don't find themselves in this room presenting to council. Like, we don't interact with them otherwise. So that was, found that quite enlightening. Let's see what else happened. Then we get into the SLRD. I think I have a similar highlight to Councillor Pettingill, or Director Pettingill, in the SLRD mode. The Seaska Regional Hospital District funding piece is really important. I don't know that I can overstate the complexity of getting that done. Having it, the legislation that governs a regional hospital district and is quite restrictive as to what those funds can be used for. And there was a path that needed to be forged that took, how long was that process? A year? 18 months to go from, hey, we would like to do this, to, yes, you can do that. So it was quite, which is frustrating that that's the case, but also we're celebrating that we got it across the line and we weren't derailed from our goals because of that particular legislation. I'll leave. Sorry, there's a couple more pieces here on. I think, I missed, sorry, I had something else I wanted to, thank you. Yeah, that was, I was like, my Monday notes, there they are. So yesterday we had, at noon, we had the annual flag raising for Pride Month at this building. And we didn't speak to it today, but my backdrop here today, and there's other pieces in council chamber recognizing Pride Month, and it was, again, great to see community come together and celebrate and in a highly visible way. And I know this kicks off many things happening for Pride Month, including a parade coming up on the weekend, which I unfortunately won't be able to attend as I'll be away at a conference, but I hope as many of council as possible can attend there. And then we had an official ribbon cutting for the new wastewater treatment plant with MP Weiler to mark the contributions of the federal government and in that project. And again, back with our Public Works team, just the level of expertise and how excited and proud they are of the new piece of infrastructure that we have to serve our community. And in this, as I speak to folks in community and read correspondence, there's there's a narrative that just that like anxiety about investment in infrastructure, and I can't think of a more core infrastructure piece than our wastewater treatment plant being up to be right sized for community and currently and with a reasonable amount of growth built in. So, and it's not something people see or think about. So I thought it was important that we stop to mark that, as well as the contributions of the other orders of government to ensure that this piece of infrastructure gets built. So that was great. I also do like using those cartoonishly large scissors to declare things open. So that was great, and thanks to those that attended there. I could go on at length about 100 other things, but that's maybe the top highlights from my mind. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, not to totally drag this out, but I do think it's important with the discussion that happened around the regional hospital district and the amazing effort that got put into helping Pemberton secure basically a satellite foundry site for the northern part of the Sea to Sky. Hospital districts are really odd entities. We don't do health in local government, but there's one avenue that we help to try and push health matters and priorities of community, and that's through the regional hospital district. It is a regional entity, so it is also tax time. You will see on your tax bills that there is a line item for the regional hospital district.
You are also the chair of said entity, just which
I
might
am
be
the chair of the regional hospital district. So there are folks who are paying in to the regional hospital district from Squamish whose dollars are being contributed to the Foundry Center in Pemberton. And similarly, that entity put $2.6 million into the CT scanner that's going into the hospital here in Squamish, opening hopefully in July. And so it's one of these like unique pieces that exists through the legislation that we get to try and prioritize and put some of our tax dollars to community priorities in healthcare. It's not something that we do on the regular. The tax requisition for that entity is not very high. So we're not building new hospitals with that money, but we are making meaningful progress in community. There are two other items out of the regional hospital, or sorry, the SLRD meeting that I wanted to flag for our community that are directly relevant. We adopted the service establishing bylaw for the Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan service area. So that gives us a new mechanism to be able to tax for the implementation of the Squamish Valley Ag Plan in different ways. That tax area covers both the District of Squamish and Area D, so we can share in that cost. And I also just want to flag that the SLRD continues to take up our advocacy on how we find effective ongoing funding mechanisms for our forest service roads. In particular, some challenging areas in the north part of the SLRD, the Hurley, which hasn't seen operating budgets increase since it was first established in the 1980s at $78,000 a year. So I know that's been an area of advocacy that we've brought forward at the District of Squamish in the past, and the regional district is carrying that forward through its UBCM minister meeting requests and advocacy work.
Thank you for that. That was eye-opening. That when was the last time this number was adjusted? Oh, it's been the same since inception in 1980. Oh, no costs have changed in that time. That makes total sense. Okay, I see no other hands for this portion. So we don't have a motion to close today. We have our in-camera announcements just are as they appear. I would be looking for, yes, Councillor, can I help you?
Motion to terminate, please.
Seconded by Councillor French. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Stoner wants to stay here all night and opposes this motion. Motion carries. Thank you so much, everybody. Good work today.